Sunday was May 1st, and Quebec's minimum wage increased from $13.50 an hour to $14.25. The increase affects approximately 300,000 workers in this province in sectors such as retail and food services. Is this increase enough to lift Quebec's working poor out of poverty, or barely enough to keep up with inflation? Virginie Larivière is on the line, spokesperson for spokesperson for the collective for a poverty-free Quebec. Excuse me, Virginie. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hello.
So let's talk about this increase here, $13.50 to $14.25. It's about 5.5% of an increase. Is that enough?
No. Unfortunately, it's not enough. It's even under the inflation rate, as you said earlier. So it's clearly not enough. We are asking that the minimum wage is supposed to be at $18. So clearly 14.25 is not enough, even if you work full time.
And Virginie, looking at the people that are working on minimum wage in Quebec, 60% of those workers are between 15 and 24. So I hear from people who say, listen, minimum wage, it's never been lower, the number of people who are on minimum wage. It affects primarily younger people. Nine out of 10 people on minimum wage have no children. So what do you say to a response that I hear from the business community that says, you know what, there is a minimum wage, but if you actually look at what's happening in jobs, we are offering $18, $20 an hour whenever it's necessary, and that the minimum wage at about half of the average salary in Quebec is where it should be?
Well, the minimum wage, in our idea, the salary and the work should, correspond to the idea of getting out poverty. It's not normal that if you have a job, a full-time job, all year long, that you barely cover your basic needs. It's kind of, a broken promises that the work is doing with the minimum wage. And when we look at the minimum wage, of course, there's a lot of students, but there's not only students. There's a lot of people who are, parents, a single person. Also, there's a lot of people who are not at schools and work at the minimum wage. And a vast majority of people working at minimum wage have a permanent job. It's not a summer job or so. And if we look at the working poor people, well, you see, of course, people at minimum wage, but you see also people who work at 10 cents above the minimum wage, 15 cents above the minimum wage. So it's not only people working at minimum wage that counts. We need to look at who works, who is the working people, the poor working people, and it's not only students. There's a lot of them, of course, but it's not the complete portrait of who works at, small salaries.
We're with Virginie Larivière, spokesperson for the Collective for a Poverty-Free Quebec. Virginie, so how do you get to your figure? You said $18 an hour, right? So what's the calculation? What's the basis that says to you $18, that's the right minimum wage?
Yes, well, we look at different indicators. It's a bit technical, but there's a lot of indicator that speaks of what does it mean to, cover your basic needs? What do we need in terms of money annually to cover your basic needs? So we know that, the market basket measure tells us that a single person in Montreal needs to have $21,000 a year to cover her or his basic needs. But in our perspective, it's not true that if you cover your basic need, you're out of poverty. So we need to look at others indicators. And then we have I don't know what it is in English, but it's the mesure de faible revenu.
Yeah. Are you talking about the poverty rate?
It's an indicator that speaks about, really small revenue.
Yeah.
And if you look at those indicators, and the other one is the revenu viable, which is developed by l'Institut de recherche socio-économique et d'information économique. We know that there's a lot of differences between covering your basic need and getting out of poverty. We talk about between $5,000 and $8,000 between covering your basic need and getting out of poverty. Mm-hmm. So we look at those indicators to establish the $18. And we established the $18 revendication in the last fall, and we know that with the inflation rate that is really, really high, probably that the $18 is really barely the minimum, actually.
Mm-hmm. Virginie, this comes up every time we talk about minimum wage. I get this counter argument. Sometimes I get it from listeners that send us messages on our text line. Like, if you increase the minimum wage too much, it's going to increase the cost of goods and services when you go to the store, and then people will end up being in the same position, right? So what do you say to someone that says you can't increase minimum wage too much, because it will increase the cost of things that you buy?
Yeah, I heard this a lot too. And we are leaving, inflation as a rate that is, fantastic, and the minimum wage has nothing to do with that. So what do we do with people who are actually working at minimum wage and are suffering from the inflation rate, the actual inflation rate? Their job is not helping in getting out of poverty. And we know for a fact that, when you look at the effect of raising, when you raise the minimum wage, it plays a little, role in the inflation rate, but it's not as important as the Bosses Association are pleased to tell. It's not. We often hear that bosses are telling that if we raise the minimum wage, importantly, then the prices will raise and it's going to be an issue and it won't help the people that we wanted to help at first. But it doesn't happen. And, we've got a lot of states or provinces who raises their minimum wage importantly, and the effect on the prices are not, catastrophic.
Yeah. Virginie, we have to leave it there. I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
Virginie Larivière is a spokesperson for the Collective for a Poverty-Free Quebec.